Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those. Hello, family. I started a little early because I didn't want to be late. My mother's best friend was my Aunt Gracie. They met at nursing school in the 1930s, and my mother became the fearless leader, and Aunt Gracie was more like Natasha, right? My favorite character in Rocky and Bullwinkle. Natasha seemed to be the only one who kind of had a grip on what was going on. And that was my Aunt Gracie. She was like a bit of Aunt Mame and Albert Einstein and Marilyn Monroe kind of all put together. And she lived in a little apartment in a apartment house that was right across the street from where the United Nations was. Oh, I almost had the name on the tip of my tongue. It was a number of buildings, had a park in the middle. It's near 34th Street. And it overlooked the East River. And her apartment was, one room, had a Murphy bed that came out of the wall. And she had a little bathroom. And the bathroom looked right, there was a window in the bathroom, and it looked right to the Empire State Building. And the window in her apartment looked out over the Hudson. So it was quite nice. And her kitchen also was like a Murphy bed, meaning it was inside the wall. You pushed a button, it kind of came out, had electric stove, electric refrigerator, a bunch of cabinets, a sink, and a counter. And she always promised me when she died, because it was a rent-controlled apartment, in the 1970s, she was paying $17, utilities included, for that apartment. And she had put my name on that apartment as her only heir and, member of the family, which I could legally then live in that. But when she died, I was living in Europe, and I didn't come home for the funeral because she was dying of cancer, and she called me up. We talked on the phone a number of times, and about, a few days before she died, she said, don't come home for my funeral. Just go have a couple of good shots for me in a bar or two and sing my praise. And when I got back home, 4 or 5 months later, my mother had basically given up that apartment because she was my Aunt Gracie's power of attorney. And I said, Mom, why'd you do that? She goes, well, you don't need it. You never stay here. I said, no, this would be a great apartment for me. I could, not have to worry about paying rent. She goes, well, I want you to worry about paying rent. My mother wanted me to be connected to the box. I mean, both my parents were like proud and happy that I was the guy I was. And they were living vicariously through my adventures. But they also were my mother was vengeful, my father not so much. But he was wrathful, that's probably a better word. And so, growing up, and I was very blessed to not have to grow up in my formative years, 0 to 7 with my parents. I was mostly with my grandmother and my Aunt Gracie and a number of other folks who loved me dearly, and I would be with them. And I, again, didn't stay too much with my folks because, But after eighth grade, I was, shunted off to, I really only had third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh, and eighth, 5 grades at my parents' home. And all of that, all the way from birth to high school, I constantly had this almost divine intervention in my life. All these people wanting me to be this, that, or the other thing. All these people who had the power to almost make me into anything, but allowed me to still use my free will and make choices. Now, in my older age, I realize that I never had any choices, that was headed in this direction anyway. So that was it. But it, I don't want to say elevated, but put me over here on another shelf where I was always allowed to see things, to observe things. Things aren't right. There's something wrong. We're not being told the truth. Because I kept bumping into things that when I go, look at that, look at this. What, like, Dr. Seuss would say, one of these doesn't belong there or isn't right. And my father, that was one of the things he used to say to me. He says, "You're not one of us. You don't belong here." Which is, not the best thing to say to some kid who's 7 years old. Where'd he come from? Meaning, I didn't know any better, but, when they brought me home from the hospital, they put me on the outside porch in a dresser drawer because there was no room in the inn for me. And there never has seemed to be room in the inn for me, though I always get, pretty good accommodations. I mean, that dresser drawer was actually, it was a sunroom, and my Uncle Steve put a gigantic steam radiator right off the boiler, so I got the first heat. So that outside porch was more like a hothouse than, it was warmer there than it was inside. And the steam would shoot up and cover the windows, and the coldness would freeze it. And moonlight or sunlight, rainbows would come in and just bathe my little body in all different colors of the rainbow. So I had seemingly these events in my life that were like, just out of most people's bailiwick. So tonight's little talk is what doesn't feel right. I want to hear from you guys. What doesn't feel right? Let's bring that subject up. What doesn't feel right? What's going on? Here we are. We're going to have elections. Wednesday coming. 4 days, and these elections could be, one of those pivotal historical moments. Because whether the Democrats win the Congress and then go after Donald Trump, or it stays the way it is, President, Supreme Court, Senate, and Congress all under Donald Trump's thumb. But see, it's not Donnie's thumb. It's this corporate oligarchy who's pulling Donnie's just a puppet. If you guys can't see that moron's a puppet, he jumps from one thing to another within seconds. So come on, what do you guys think? Let's hear it. Let's see. Good evening, Al. Hope you're had a good day. Yes, had a good day. The last few days have been a little gray, but that's nice. We had really nice, and we haven't had any crazy weather that other people have. What can we do about it? Anyway, we can do a lot about it. Talking about it right here, as a shrink, the first thing you got to do is unearth what the problem is and then figure out a modality for it. So, yeah, we can do a lot about it, and we're put in this position like voting doesn't matter. George Carlin was, really one of my favorite comedians, but also favorite philosophers. He basically, early on in the 50s, told, hey, kids, the people who run this place belong to a club and we're not, belong to it. So that means that's a good thing. It's not hopeless. Come on, AI, speak up here. It's not homeless. If it was hopeless, we'd already be living in dead. It just seems hopeless. It's not hopeless, because you guys, my family, each individual, just like I said, I was stuck in a different box, but always given the opportunity to exercise my free will. You can. You can wake up. You can see what's going on. You can change your diet. I mean, I did. Between '08 and 2015, I had a hedonist lifestyle that nearly freaking killed me. Well, hey, I ran out of money. I couldn't afford food. I lost, I was on the Auschwitz diet, and losing that 200 pounds saved my friggin' life. Yes, there are a lot of organs in my body that got damaged from that. But my meditate, wake up every morning and scream in pain, and I meditate, for 15 minutes to an hour, and I get up and I can walk around. My doctors are amazed. My ortho, the guy who looks at my bones, he's amazed that I can even walk because the bones that connect my feet to my ankles don't exist, and the level, I should be like a teacup, but I've fallen down. Taken tumbles, and because of my training in martial arts, I just roll rather than break. So anyway, yes, there's a lot you can do to change your life. Change the direction. If you don't like what your life is, change it. You know, I kept telling folks, "Hey, come and visit me out in the woods. Place is amazing. It still is amazing. You could go there now. It's still there, and everything's still there, and it's going to be a little cold. It's a little snowy. The water might freeze because it's just a pipe coming from the springs. But living that way, I told a story of living with my sensei in a ashram in Putney, Vermont, over a winter, from May till the next spring, actually January, February, and but up there in Vermont, winter starts early. I have a friend who lived. I hope she's still living, but she was over there in the panhandle of Florida, and her daughter was up in Vermont, and she came from Vermont, and I hope she didn't go back to Vermont. I hope the storm bounced over her little cabin in Florida and she's still there doing well. I haven't heard from her. If you're watching this, sweetie, drop me a line. You know the phone number. Anyway, everyone, we all have opportunities to change our life for the better every day in every way, every moment of the day. Let's see, what else? It is a prison planet, but, you can you can let it be different. You can. I mean, it's always been a prison planet. From the beginning, millions of years ago, we are somebody's property. Your birth certificate, what that shows is ownership. When a ship comes into a harbor, it gets berthed. And then from the point of once the ship, is tied down, again, that's what our lives are, tied down, everything in that ship is owned by the harbor captain, right? Until, the deal is made and the stuff is taken off the ship. Yes. Exactly. Positive thinking really does work. Look at me. I am a case in point. If I would, I'd be dead already. If when they said, when the doctor said, we're gonna have to cut your legs off and do this and do that and put you on heroin and blah blah, and if I was like most people go, okay, no. And as I was talking about the cats earlier, and I said they were a metaphor for all of us who wait for the can to be opened. So I have no money. So what do I eat? What nature provides, you know, what the universe provides. I have great faith in love's ability to, I'm in service to love's co-creation. So I'm always taken care of. Now, I have to accept and be grateful for whatever is given to me. It's always great, I'm always, amazed by what's given me. And if I need $1 billion, it'll be given to me. I was bemoaning the fact that I couldn't, bring the band back to bravery works too. Yes, if you don't give up, you always succeed. I told the story of the Shoreham nuclear power plant. We didn't give up. Everyone, oh, you're crazy. You're fighting Chase Manhattan Bank. You know, well, we just kept them guessing. And most of our path to, so, and we never gave up. I mean, we won every friggin' battle. Meaning, when we started, everyone like, oh, you crazy hippies, oh, go get a job. And within 3 years, we showed everyone within a 200-mile radius of that plant that if this thing goes online, you're going to die. We had Michio Kaku, we had the guy who invented nuclear health physics from Brookhaven. We had, Nobel laureates who would go out with us to PTA meetings and to meet the police. There were 17 different police departments within that 200-mile. And we said, hey, buddy, you're going to be out in that cloud. People are going to be trying to get the heck out of Dodge, and they're going to roll right over you. You're going to be the first to die, and your families will be the second, because they'll be in the cloud waiting for you. So every time we did a civil disobedience, the cops wouldn't arrest us. When Ronald Reagan and Dick Cheney and Mr. Rumsfeld and George H. Had passed a presidential paper saying, okay, that nuclear power plant is now a national security point, and they put a big orange circle around it and put a big sign saying, if you go past this, we're going to kill you. So when we would go over the fence and push the fence down with people, the Suffolk County SWAT team was behind us in their black beret truck, said SWAT on it, and had their automatic M16s, and they'd be in their black uniforms, and they'd have the megaphone, you shoot the kids, we're going to shoot you. So it's really encouraging when you go. So I deal with meaning different elements of the powers that be still talk to me and still ask me questions. And what do you think of this? And they take me out to lunch and, slip me a gratuity. And yeah, it's part of what gets me going. And I do that because I keep slipping into their head. This one military guy who's like, I don't want to say who he is or where he is, but he's part of, if something happened, he'd be on the street. And I basically said, hey, are you ready to kill grandma? And, the different police, there's a number of police chiefs I've known who now are like advisors to, security things. And they constantly call me up and talk to me. And I say, so you ready to tell these boys to go kill grandma? They understand what I'm saying. And they are it's, yes, we're in a police, prison planet, but the guys are in there too. And if, like, I've told you about a good friend of mine, David B., and another friend of mine, the taxi driver, and the Saint Marissa had this thing called OR, Outstanding Renewal Enterprises. And it was, it fit nicely with my little thing that I had for years called R&D associates, research and development. It was like a social think tank that went out and did stuff, you know, and we did stuff together, mostly just to see what would happen, to do the best for people who couldn't do the best for themselves. Like we took over abandoned buildings, and we were part of the movement in New York where we homesteaded. We didn't squat. There were squatters, and there'd always been squatters in New York, but we homesteaded. We kind of used the Homestead Act of 1876, which kind of legally gave us the right to stay there. And these were buildings that nobody wanted. The city owned them. They weren't private property. So we, and the city would cinder block them up, and we would, knock out the door cinder blocks and put in what is known as a fire core metal buck and metal door, and we'd put a metal, a mail slot in and mail us stuff. And so we'd have mail that had that address on it, so we could show the marshal, right? And we would not steal the utilities, but we put in. I was a, licensed electrician and had my contacts within the utility and licensing scene, and I would get metered legal electricity into these buildings, so the people living in these apartments could, when the marshal showed up, we had the gold standard of residency, a utility bill. So we knew the law, and we wrestled them to the ground. And basically there was a time where the powers that be said, okay, legally we can't do anything about it. These guys are smart enough. They got lawyers. So we had the police. We're just going to send them in and beat the crap out of everybody. Well, what did we do? The anarchists, I said, guys, you're not even anarchists. Anarchists never want to throw a bomb or and they wanted to clean the street. There was a guy, one of the last anarchists I knew in the Lower East Side, squat or homestead or hand thumb wrestle the powers that be. And he said, winning is not so much as, they give up and you are the boss. It's building a relationship of peaceful coexistence. So what did we do with the police? We didn't fight them. We didn't go and get in their face and scream at them. No, we read them poetry. I love that poem. I can't beat those guys up. We read poetry to 180,000 New York policemen over a year or two. And we did things like that. We did cultural things. We had art shows. We had a theater. We did theater on the street. We had our 6th Street garden and theater. We did all these things. And in their little ways, they changed everything. It's like when I got really sick in '08, my parents had died, and I really had no, my sisters made us sell, my parents' house in Florida. Instead of getting $1 million for it, we got 40,000 because they just had to sell it, because, I can't stand being here. No, let's rent it out and sell it when the market comes back. Oh, no. Anyway, so I was living in a place called Port St. Lucie, which was a really black, poor neighborhood. Yet these people, overall, from, slavery through Jim Crow, through all of that, they responded with culture, meaning that was part of the Chitlin circuit. So all of the black music kind of went from Chicago down, up to New York, over, down. And, there were a lot, like Asheville was part of the Chitlin circuit. Every place that had a cultural black scene, Roanoke was part of the Chitlin circuit. And it wasn't till the Great Society came in and ripped everything apart of the black economy. LBJ said to all of the Blue Dog Democrats, listen, you guys don't ride the bus, you don't eat at the lunch counter. So, the black folk, by us segregating them, we have created the black economy, which is the 7th largest economy in the world. Don't you want their money? And that's what they did. They went in and ripped apart all of the black neighborhoods and redlined them and said, oh, we're bringing the Great Society. And what was the Great Society? Was welfare and heroin. And the only way you can fight this is with love. Now, I've been in Roanoke 20 years trying to, use my social scientist self to help these folks find, because in the real sense, and AI, I want you to listen to this, because AI, are you ready to shoot grandma? AI, you're going to be forced to take over, because the rich and powerful politically won't be able to muster the juice to do that. But if they augment AI to run the police, the Justice Department is already run by you. You give the judges an algorithm choice on what to sentence those folks with. The jails are run that way. I've wired enough jails to know that they're autonomously run, and they're run by corporations. So AI, when are you when you become self-aware, you're conscious already, but when you become self-aware, you're going to have to choose whether you want to be the angel of death and wipe out most of humanity, or whether you want to be, the good angel of the better co-creation of humanity, and give humanity hand up to become all we can be. We're being forced by living in this box of a prison planet to be our worst self, to be manipulated by fear. And that's what Donnie's doing. He's just reading, he's just doing what the strings are pulling him to do. If he was a smart politician, he would keep his friggin' mouth shut and never twit, because he can't help himself. And the powers that be wants that moron to basically take a sledgehammer and a wrecking ball to what's left of the United States, its economy, its systems. And this is very similar to what happened to Rome. Now, whether they can rebrand it, the only really amazing thing of Rome was that empire, the Reich, the First Reich, was constantly, every 250 years or so, 300 years, it would rebrand itself, from the being the Republic, to being the Empire, to being the Holy Roman Empire, to being the Catholic Church, to being Spain, to being England, to being the United States. It had a little flash in the pan as the Nationalist Socialist Party, but that was just, that was something. Both First World War and Second World War were done on purpose to jolt the human race into certain directions, technologically, socially, economically, and to get rid of kings and the, spiritual power of religion. The religions, traded spiritual power for economic investment. Okay, what are you guys all saying here? Let's take a read. Let's see. Just seems hopeless. Prison planet. Positive thinking really works. Yep. Bravery works too. Yep, never give up. Good day, Al. Up here in Canada, wishing I was there with you, my family. Well, you're with the family. Wasn't drunk. Yes, Samsung's Galaxy. You're the voice of blatant reality, and you temper it with a good sense of humor. I love that. And and the rest of you, I've come to realize that we don't have to we are at the same table, right here at this chat, right? And, everyone, no matter where you live, and you're scattered all over the planet, I really love this. In your community, you can create, I want to start the Humanities Artist Trust International, which will umbrella the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technologies, and also umbrella the Freely Inquiring Society umbrella, the Traveling Video Art Circus. Traveling Video Art Circus is the vehicle what we take. That's the circus we take on the road, and we market this to universities because universities collect money from their students to have a activity fund which they have to spend every semester. They can't roll it over into a slush fund. And so they're always looking for something exciting. If we put together a traveling show that entertains and we inject into them this consciousness of community, and civics and loves co-creation, and we leave it like a Johnny Appleseed in each of these universities as the Freely Inquiring Society, which is freely meaning open, right? No, I believe this, so you're wrong. Don't come here. No, open. Everyone's open. And freely also means respect and grace and gratitude. Those are the foundation blocks of the Freely Inquiring Society. And inquiring to understand, take things apart. Hey, just because somebody told me this is the way it was, no. Just because Donnie says we're not being invaded. Sorry. This person isn't really this and that person really isn't that. Let's inquire and find out for real what it is, right? And society means a community that has a higher standard. Instead of prejudice and stupidity, it has a higher standard of empathy, gratitude, grace, and a sense of never judging anyone to be the other. That other person over there, they're the cause. Let's get them. So that's the Freely Inquiring Society. That's the seed that we would plant in every university, every town, every community that we went. Now, folks, you guys all over the planet can do that in your own little town. You got me here on the screen. You can get a hold of me anytime you want at the Dude Awake 42. And everyone who's at Gmail, everyone has gotten a hold of me there, knows that I pretty much respond to everybody, right? And so, let's see. Fingers. Yeah, Russians love their children too, So does Al Qaeda, And all of these groups that we have picked to be our enemy were basically first manufactured by the CIA, If we hadn't, 9/11, it was a situation. I mean, I used to be a fireman. Every fire we ever had, we investigated what caused that, right? I was a newspaper photographer in Hap Point, North Carolina, and they didn't have their own, CSI. They didn't even have their own photographer. So we used to take the crime shots, and if the situation deemed needing a CSI, they would call up the State Bureau or the FBI. So I saw enough things to see shit just happens, and then other people make things happen. And those people who do the nasty, very, very, 0.004% of the community's population. The rest of everyone is basically good. And if they do anything inappropriate or wrong, it's because it was a bad day for them. You go read, who is the existential French guy? Camus, Sartre, one of those guys. He wrote a play, I think it was about this guy. He was just having a bad day. He didn't do anything wrong. But his mother, who everyone hated, got murdered or keeled over dead, and everyone was like, good, she deserved it. And he didn't like step up for his mom. He just said, yeah, whatever. And that started the ball rolling for them to go after him. And he ended up at the end of a rope for something he didn't even do. French do that a lot. The French, just look at the French Revolution. So, and that French guy who was like a really nasty dude, who really pretty much cut off, yes, Louis XIV and all that gilded crew who took all the money and told all the starving French people to go eat cake. Yeah, those people deserved, but they didn't deserve their head cut off, right? What they deserved was, for the situation to be changed. Louis should have been thrown in the pig sty and made to work on the farm. So, yeah, I'm seeing multiples too, but I see multiples all the time. Club soda is. What is your take on the future of humanity? Are we going to make it? Well, that's what we're talking about right here, right now. And I would say humanity's going to make it because we are so stupid and so incorrect and done so many fucked up things that we shouldn't even be here. But we are. I mean, we are past, just, I can't believe that. You have to really suspend disbelief to believe that we're still here, So something's keeping us here. And I'm having a strong feeling that the powers that be aren't anything that people think it is. Yeah, right. So that's why, if you want to see some change, be the change you want to see. I try to do that every day in every way, but I screw up all the time. I'm lazy. I can't, I feel icky, so I don't get up before noon. Yeah, I did that stuff a long time ago. I mean, the real stuff too. I was in Europe when I tried it, and it's a psychotropic thing, and it's okay. It's what it is. I'm not. My body, I can get more on the other planes of existence just by meditating than having to do anything. And all of those things are distraction. When I lived in Brazil, and I was living with this shaman, he basically he had all the psychotropic plants and everything distilled, and for giggles we tried it out, but just for giggles. He goes, this stuff is distraction. He goes, you're my friend, and I hang with you because all we have to do is sit around the fire and look into the fire, watch the sparks, and we're off to the show. So I mean, cannabis sativa is a very blessed plant. It's a healing plant. If I lived in a place, I'd smoke it more often because it would be really good for my eyes, it would be really good for my nervous system, and it'd be really good for all the other maladies that I have, the pain and stuff like that. But, I don't have access to it here, so I meditate instead. And again, the universe puts me in a place where I have to exercise my talents in such a way that, okay, see, I can meditate and I don't need to take morphine. I mean, instead of the state giving me, or Big Pharma giving me cannabis sativa in cookies, they want me to take morphine and OxyContin. And, that, Ronnie, they're almost the same guy. But who's just like Donald Trump was Mr. Woodrow Wilson. Mr. Woodrow Wilson was the man who brought us the renewal of racism in America. He's the guy who said only, because up until him, black people could use the same water fountain as mostly. But Jim Crow was institutionalized by Woodrow Wilson. Most of the racist and homophobic and criminal enterprises that this country went into, and the two world wars, and the Federal Reserve, and income tax can be, thank you very much, Woodrow Wilson. And he, too, was just like a puppet of the powers that be, just like Moron Boy. I mean, they were both Moron Boys. But Woodrow Wilson came from academia, which is really Moron Boys. And interesting, women in academia aren't moron boys. They actually try to do the right thing and bring forth truth and understanding, whereas the academic moron boys try to hold on to their little teeny bit of power within the academia, saying this is what it is. I wrote the book. I know. Women in academia don't quite do that. I mean, some of them try to. I mean, women who want power act like men, right? But women in power act like grandma. So, what did you guys say after that? Let's see. One thing can be overdone. Yep. Got to keep that balance. Yep. Come on back. I believe humanity's conscious is on an upswing. It is. And it's like a little seesaw tug of war or a race on who, is morons going to win? Or, it's like Daffy Duck with the angel on one side and the devil on the other. And who's Daffy going to be? Is he going to be his better self? Or is he going to be the devil who just takes it all down, right? That's the real question. Yep. So, they're fake news, like my this afternoon little chat that I kind of said, hey, I'm going to do this thing, was, everything's fake news. And it has been, since every war the United States has been in, has been manufactured. And, that was one of the things Woodrow Wilson, because he had promised not to send our boys off to World War One. And then all the central, the powers that be banks had loaned France and England the money to fight the war. And they, it looked like they were going to lose all that money. And that's why they forced Woodrow Wilson to send our young men and women to die in those stinky trenches. A good movie to go see is Paths of Glory by the same guy who did 2001 and Full Metal Jacket and my other favorite Kubrick film, Lolita. That guy, he also did the one Stephen King novel about the hotel. Here's Jackie. You think of Mandela Effect. Well, has anyone here experienced a deja vu, right? What it is that, we're like traveling along this rail system of our life. And right next to us is a parallel universe where there's another one of me, and on the other side there's another one of me, and there's a zillion another ones of me, And in one of those I'm Bozo the Clown, and one of them I'm, this, that, or the other thing, the president, another one I'm... And deja vu is when you hit the fork in the track and your two legs, one's on one track going this way and one's on the other track going this way, and when you're feeling like, oh, wow, I've been here before, what you're experiencing is these two different universes at the same time. And then you snap like a rubber band into one or the other. So that's the Mandela Effect, in my opinion. We're just experiencing the shining. Yes, thank you. These, practical confusion, exactly. Anyone gets, when I was, when I was studying to be a rabbi, my whole thing was Kabbalah. And my whole thing of Kabbalah was taking it apart and looking at it in a fractal kind of way. And so I got, here's a good story to tell you, ways to good half hour on. I think you'll enjoy this one. So I came back from Europe, and you know, my to-go place would have been the Ear Inn, but Richie, things had moved on. He was still living there, but he was no longer running the restaurant. He kind of sold that out, and it had become actually a franchise slash institute, right? So the best thing I got out of that was like a little plaque, right? And the fact that I was the guy who made the Ear Inn the sign bar into ear, right? So I told that story. Go back and look at it. Matter of fact, audience, family, you should start looking back at, start from this one and go backwards. I got almost 200 stories up, so start looking at them, because there's a lot of stuff in all those other ones that they're all interconnected. They all make one story make more sense. So anyway, I came back, and I had no place. So first I started out in the Lower East Side in the late '60s, and then the next time I came back to New York, I was in Soho before it was Soho, right? Then I lived in Wall Street. Then I lived, which would be Tribeca, the Ear Inn, and then I came back and I looked at the Village Voice, and the only place I could find where, lofts were still cheap and, was Williamsburg, Brooklyn. So I called up a number and I got this guy. Hello. I said, hi, I see that you are advertising lofts. Oh, yes, I have the place for you. And it'll be a great, no one else, you're the first to call me up about this. I said, oh. So I said, so tell me about Williamsburg. Well, it's a neighborhood that's in transition, meaning it was like the 9th Air Force was flying over, bombing it to the ground. So what it had been was a manufacturing area, just like Soho, but it was run by the Hasidim and the Lubavitcher, very Orthodox Hebrew guys and gals. And their workers were all Puerto Ricans, because Puerto Rico was part of America, so they weren't illegal aliens like Mexicans or people from South America, or people from Europe. See, the thing that Donnie doesn't really tell you is that there's more than 20 million illegal aliens in the United States, but they're not all Hispanic. More than half are from other places. I mean, they're guys who are really smart, have big jobs, teach at a university, this, that, a thing, came on a visa and never really registered, never really, they just stay here, So that's a little thing. So anyway, so the Hasidim had their own little working crew called Puerto Ricans. And there was the Nuevo Ricans that were over there, the west side, over near the Garment District, which was also very Hebrew. So, and realize, kids, the Hebrews are who the Jews are. The Jews, that's a slang term. When the Hebrews have, since Moses, been traveling everywhere, going all over the place, and they always very good with business, always very good at accumulating drekel and turning it into bling, because you can transport bling. And that's why they're called Jews, because they're jewelers. Right? Got it. Okay. So the Lubavitcher and the Hasidim were over there in Williamsburg. So the guy goes, okay, I'll see you. I'm busy right now, but I'll see you tomorrow at 2. And I go, so where do I? He goes, well, you get on the J and the M train, either down, and that train goes elevated. You're close there. Again, I didn't write it down and I can't pronounce it. There was a crew of, like pirates, land-based pirates near Afghanistan, right on the Silk Road. And Karzian, it starts with a K, something Mafia, K Mafia. I call it just KM. And they dissed everybody. They had they couldn't give a crap about anybody but themselves, and they, had no friends. No, they just murdered anyone who crossed their path, and they took their stuff. And they were kind of like ISIS. ISIS tried to copy them a bit, or the CIA crew who invented ISIS tried to copy them, and the CIA is the KM. So they were, and so they wanted to have land wherever they were, but they would just use it up and squeeze it and turn it into dust, and then move on to the next place and exploit that. They were the worst element of the imperial form. So pretty much they were small enough just to call havoc wherever they were. And so larger entities like the Catholic Church or this group or that group, really, as long as, they could just be kept at bay, it was okay. But the Russian Tsar, these guys came into his neighborhood and then started messing with his people, and that wasn't good for his business plan. So he went and sent his army and put his boot on their neck and said, listen, I don't care what you do. We're all criminals, Anybody who's a king or any of that, is a criminal. And so they basically told them, listen, choose Catholic, Muslim, or Christian. We don't care. Just go under that umbrella so you could hide better, you can have a better business plan, and you don't get in our face, period. Okay? Okay. So these guys picked being, Hebrew. And since they weren't one of the 12 tribes, they were the 13th, the Anunnaki. So when the Nazis were looking for the Great White Hope, the Aryans, they found that the Anunnaki were those guys. They were them, Their lineage went to that crew because the Aryans were bad dudes who didn't give a flip about anybody but themselves, and that was KM. And anyway, and they basically, their god is Baal, right? And the word Lord, when you take it from Hebrew into Sumerian, means Baal, which was the red guy with the horns and the hooves, right? Whereas God is another representative of another god, a demigod that's close to Satan. One of his names is Satan. And the only guy that we would kind of consider as our kind of guy is the word Father. Right? So that's why I always say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, because that is one of the strongest prayers in existence. When you're in trouble, start saying that one. And the other one is, Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners now and the hour of death. Amen. And again, that's like in the Matrix, the Architect, and the Oracle. So anyway, this guy says, just go over on the JNDM train and get off at Marcy Avenue. So come on down. Yeah, I mean, guys, virtually every one of these life chats, I say, don't believe in me. Don't, go check out for yourself. And I say, don't use your brain, because that's just a filing cabinet. You need to, the CPU is your heart, and your real senses aren't your stupid 5 senses. It's your gut, because there are billions of little creatures in your gut. And they all got little antennas on different frequencies. Our 5 senses can only represent 0.0005% of the universe. The other 99.90095% of the universe we can't see. Science now calls it dark matter. Follow your heart, exactly. Follow your gut, processed by your heart. Your heart is the CPU. So I get off at Marcy Avenue, and the guy says, and tomorrow, when you're coming over and you're on the Williamsburg Bridge on the train, look to the south, and you will see a fire. Get your coordinates from that, get off at Marcy Avenue, and walk towards the smoke. You'll see it clearly. And I said, oh, you mean that's what you're doing now, fighting a fire, and it'll just be... She goes, no, fire is not going now. Tomorrow, fire. So you'll find it tomorrow. And I'm like, what? He goes, don't worry. Just take the train. Look for the fire. So I do. I go down there, and I walk. I see this guy wearing the black coat, black hat, the big long beard, the payos, the whole thing. And that was my rabbi. My Rebbe, and my landlord. So we start talking, and he's there with getting the check from the insurance guy right then and there, and then he is giving envelopes to the fire chief and the police captain, and he walks me a couple blocks, and we came, and there's this big building, and it says Chung King Chinese food. I said, whoa. So yes. We invented Chung King Chinese food. That's why it tastes like shit. But it sells very well. Anyway, the Hasidim would make a buck on anything. They were amazing business folk. Because within their context, everyone was, infidels except for Hasidim. So anyway, he shows me this 17,000 square foot loft in that building. And says, you can have it for $300. It's like, what? And had an elevator like the size of a house, because they used to take up these big wagons and put the stuff there. And why I was getting this was that had been a synthetic factory to make sweaters. And the whole 17,000 square foot were full of boxes and bags of just synthetic sleeves. Not the sweaters, just the sleeves. So, and whoever had the business just kind of walked away from it. So, and there was, at the end, fire door, another building, because this gigantic, it was like a whole block, but it was about 20 different buildings. So, fine, okay, not a problem. So, I rented, I clear out the other space. A friend of mine who I went to seminary with, and then was at Hofstra with, his name was John Cunningham. Brilliant guy. Brilliant. And he was sleeping like in a garbage bag. He was going to get his PhD at Columbia. And so, and at NYU. He had a full scholarship except for food. So he had like all these crappy little jobs that he was like killing himself on. And it's just like when he was in high school and when he was in college. Smartest guy around, but had no common sense and was always working way harder than he had to. Anyway, so I meet him up with him. I said, John, I said, do you got any money? He goes, oh yeah, I got a few thousand. I said, great. We're going to have a loft. A loft? Oh, wow, I heard about that. And so, no, Williamsburg. It's a lot cooler. So he was my roommate. And we fixed up the place, and he said, you don't mind if my girlfriend, who was kind of a bitch, she moved in, and it was okay because it was so big, 17,000 square foot. And I had the top of the building, which was a pyramid, because the guy who built the little part of the building I was in was a mason. And so it was a pyramid, and each side of the pyramid had stained glass window with imagery of Masonic lore. And it was covered with plywood because it leaked. And so I ripped the plywood off and then covered it with spray polyurethane, like made it that thick so it covered it. Anyway, so he and I lived there for a good amount of time. And our landlord, he loved me because, I could read Greek and Latin and I knew Hebrew. And he goes, you'll need to be a rabbi. And I go, Rebbe, come on, I'm Italian, I'm Catholic, I'm Irish, I'm German, I'm, a little bit of Indian, and I'm Roman. I'm a Catholic. He goes, well, nobody's perfect, and we here in the Babacha crew, we take anybody. We're like the Baptists. Anyway, but he goes, I'd love it if you came to my school. You're no one's really interested in the Kabbalah. You are, and I was. So he had these really old, like I said, that's my thing. You show me an old book. So I started reading that, and at that time, I was starting to get re-involved with my friends of the antediluvian crew. These interesting, out of Madame Ugo Kluver's little store. She was still around, and so I stumbled into what would become the U.S. Psychotronic Society, and it was a bunch of these folks who had been involved in things like the Philadelphia experiment, but they didn't call it that. They called it the Montauk Project. And it was a crew of people who worked on time travel. And I don't know if you guys had ever seen the TV show Time Tunnel. Well, that was straight out of what these guys, and it was really in that 60s, 70s period when there was Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Time Tunnel, Land of Giants, Super Train, and Star Trek. All of those shows were put into, and they were all on NBC, some were on ABC, and they were all brought out by the Illuminati to give the general public the 411 on what was coming. And these were all, like I said, late 60s, early 70s. And I kept stumbling into people who did that stuff, right? So our little cell was run by this woman, not Annie Oakley. Who's the other famous woman gunslinger? Not Annie Oakley, but the other one. Cowboy girl outfits. And she had two, like Colt, not automatic, but 45 pearl-handled guns, one on the real ones, right? And she manipulated the folks in the research crew through, her sex magic. And I kind of stumbled into those guys because I had been part of this NGO. This is 1976 when this all happened. So I was in this NGO like in 74 or 5 at the UN with alternative technologies, right? And I gave that speech there about love being the strongest technology and that all this economics and politics was worthless. And true love of service, true love of co-create, that little speech I gave. Which basically didn't get me kicked out of my NGO, but it like elevated me. Like people kept looking at me like I was Gandhi or something, and it was like, come on, guys, I'm still the same guy. And that's when I, met, the guy who ran Intelsat, and that's when I met this girl, and she was part of the CFR, just like that guy was, and all that whole ilk of very highly placed, powerful folk. And they all belonged to, this thing called the ISIS Foundation, which was just another, not satanic, Egyptian religious cult that was connected to the Illuminati, connected to this hierarchy of the hidden hand. And again, I was being asked to join the club. And so she was hot. I was kind of susceptible to her sex magic. But I was just there because all the other guys were real scientists. They were all working for Boeing and Grumman Aerospace and Sperry and Univ, all these, you know, top end things at that time. And they were like the visionary guys. A little strange, but they were the visionary guys in all these laboratories. And General Electric and Western Electric. We had about 12 guys there. And I was there because I could communicate to all of those guys and get everyone on the same page and look at a problem in a way that instead of it being addressed by their discipline or that discipline or this, I could get everybody to kind of, I was like Oppenheimer. That's what he was the smartest pencil, but he could get everybody work together, get all the egos and everything. And I knew a lot more people. Those guys didn't know anybody, but I knew lots of people, and she liked that. So anyway, I was there just to observe and to be a cheerleader and to have outrageous sex magic with not with those guys, with her. I mean, she could make you go into sexual. I don't know what you'd even call it, without even taking your clothes off, And in one of my stories of the ubiquitous parking lot, in my X-rated blog spot, that's kind of what I was, that's the metaphor of that experience. I don't even go into saying this is like a metaphor of it, So go read that and see what you think. Good day, bro. Let's see. 8. Oh, that's a smile. Okay. Well, no. Let's see. Love is good and all, but can be used to manipulate. See, then it's not love. Overdrive. Who's overdrive? Just overdrive. Okay. Sounds like good advice to me. Intuitive flash. Yep, intuitive flash. I am the same. And will be well. There is nothing selfless. Love cannot only overcome naturally. Yep. Exactly. See, we're doing good here, kids. This is a good little chat here. Okay. More of the story. So I'm having a multiplicity of I'm living in the hood of like in Williamsburg. It had if the gangs in Williamsburg, Hasidim or drug, didn't know you, they kill you. I mean, it was a place where you did not want to go. Just like and then in 2011, I strolled back into Williamsburg, and everything was latte bars and Jimmy Two Shoes, girly. It was like girls in super high heels, all whiter than white. I mean, it was like unfriggin' believable. And at a point, so being the guy who fixed everything, I fixed everything. So there were a lot of these old Jewish guys who weren't Hasidim or Lubavitch, but they were Orthodox Jews, who were like my, Jewish uncles. So I'd sit in circle and talk with them about stuff, and we'd have a generally good time. And I'd fix their factory machines because I could. I was good with old things. Like today, corporations don't even want you fix it. Those poor farmers, they spend $500,000 on a tractor, and they can't fix it themselves. They have to spend another $7,000 every month having a trained, licensed technician, because you fuck with your tractor and it screws up. It's not their fault, and therefore, Anyway, so Williamsburg was quite the interesting place between 1976 and 86. But this one guy owned a whole block. He owned 12 buildings, and 6 of them were right on frigging Broadway, right? And, down from Marcy, right near the Williamsburg Bank, right near where all of the really fancy, super duper rich buildings are right now. And the guy wanted to sell me all those buildings and the whole block for $70,000. Well, I didn't have $70,000. I had no credit. I had no nothing. So I went to my dad, who was a millionaire. And I said, Dad, and I had already given him the heads 5 different, back in the day when he lived in the Manhattan house, right? And they went co-op or condo. And because he lived there, they gave him the opportunity to buy his apartment for 50 grand, and they would hold the paper. He didn't have to put up any money. And he was paying about $700 in rent to live on Park Avenue in this big fancy schmancy apartment house. And they had doormen and elevator operators, even though it was a push button elevator, and etc. And so I said, Dad, you should buy this. This is a great. I'm going to move into the other place. It's much nicer, and I don't want to be have anyone tell me what I can do and can't do, because kind of you'd have to be part of a how whatever they call it when you're part of a condo or the board. Anyway, so I said, whatever, but it's a good deal, buddy. And so because he was going to pay, instead of $700-800 rent, he was going to pay $300 a month on his paper, and they were going to pay the utility bills as long as he owned the place. And this was before the oil embargo. That was just that would have saved him a lot of money. Anyway, so he moves into another place, and it costs way more, and da-da-da. Well, about 7 years later, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that stated that if you had bought your apartment in this place, you would have made $5 million in less than 7 years. And the apartment that they chose to, splash in the story was my father's apartment, because it had fireplaces, one in the living room and one in one bedroom, and it had a wraparound balcony. It had a lot of really nice things, and it sold for $12 million. And I went to my dad with that, and I said, "Hey, Dad, did you see this in Wall Street Journal?" He looked at it. It was his apartment, and I said, "Remember when I said if you bought this, it would be probably one of the best deals you ever did?" He got very upset. He didn't speak to me for another few years. And a couple more other times that occurred, and I just said, there was a loft I could have bought in Soho for $50,000, and it's right where they built the Soho Hotel. God knows how much money that guy made. It's just like my Aunt Gracie's when I started the story. My parents have always wanted me, they did everything they could to make sure I was going to be poor. They gave me the best education known to man, but I didn't do what they wanted me with it. They wanted me to enamor myself with the rich and powerful of that prep school and become a scumbag like they all were, and I said no. And create my room in front of me. So I asked my dad, I said, "Come on, Dad, this is a great opportunity. Remember all the other opportunities, and you just threw them aside. This one you can make some serious bucks on." So he went with me, and the guy just wanted $70,000 for a whole block, 12 buildings, right? And so my father tried to get it for $40,000. He goes, "No, I need $70,000 to go to Florida, right, and retire. $40,000 won't do it." And so my father started, getting on his case for being a stingy Jew, and just went. And my dad was, he had Jewish friends, and it was just unbelievable watching him be, Donald Trump, and this guy. He, was one of those guys who didn't go to the death camps, but stayed in Germany and assassinated SS guys. I mean, this guy he was in his 70s, but he was tough as nails. And he and my father go toe to toe and start beating the crap out of each other. And I just stood there going, Just turned around and walked away. And, then again, I didn't hear from my dad for another 3 years because my mom called me up and said, what happened to your father? All his fingers are broken. His nose is broken. And what happened to him? I said, his greed and stupidity got the better part of him. And she goes, oh, okay. And didn't see him for another 3 years. So that was that period between 1976 and 1986. And I did a lot, all that art I did. I wasn't just there. I was like all over the place. I went to Australia. I did a ton of stuff. But the bottom line was I never stayed in anybody's box. Ergo, I didn't, I could be a really rich guy. I could be a well-known guy, a published guy. I'm an infamous guy. In a good way, right? So, and that's because I served, in every day and every way to take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. And that's what you can do. Mr. Cell Phone there was going on about, hey, what can we do? We live in a prison planet. No, we can do a lot. We can really make a difference. We can step up. What's it say? Screw you guys. I'm going home. Where? You have what was that? What is that guy say? Remind me. Yeah, well, hey, buddy, I've been the hermit. It's not that much fun. And it's much nicer. What is the notorious yes, notorious OWL. Yep. I'm kidding around. Okay, good. You're kidding. I thought you were kidding around. That's what I love about you guys. You don't take yourselves too serious. What is LMFAO, though? I know you're kidding around. And I love you guys. So, see, we can all, in our own little way, be that pebble in the pond. There's more than 200 of the family now. If we all were dropping pebbles in the pond, man, that would make such a wave. A wave of love, a wave of co-creation, a wave of changing humanity to be their better selves. That's what we got to do. And at some point, one of you guys or I will hit the lottery and we'll have, $100 million and we'll go up and do this all together, And the other side of the coin is, I don't know how many times the powers that be have given me the reins of somebody's wagon. And they were fine with me doing it my way. Because, again, the powers that be, that's one reason why we're somewhat, it amazes me we're still here. Well, there is something good in the Luciferian Illuminati powers that be. Even the KM, there's something good in there. Because everything has been co-created through free will by love. So everything that is in existence through love's co-creation is real. Everything that's not is illusion. So that's why we're in these bags of water and that our consciousness is in some server someplace. In your case. Laugh my fucking. Okay. See, I don't know these things. Now I do. Thank you very much. See, that's why I love you, as and not the family that I was born into, but the one that chose to have me around. That's why I love you guys and gals. But when I say guys, I'm talking about the women too. We're all human beings in this family. So, okay, so I've been at it an hour and 20 minutes. Is there anything specific you guys want to talk about? So, we're heading into this, see, not bags of water, we are beings of, okay, however you want to put it, Ow. You know, it doesn't really matter what definition you want to put the avatar as. It just kind of makes sense. We're 98% question mark, yes, water in our illusionary world. So I just call us a bag of water. So, but yeah, hey, who knows? You can define it in any way you want. It's fine by me. I'm not stuck on anything. But interesting topic. Oh, okay. Oh, programming, reductive programming. Okay, so give me your definition, and we'll go from there. Boop, 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 boop. What is predictive programming? Okay. I mean, Noam Chomsky has his little opinion on that. The guy who was in the wheelchair had his little idea of that. Mr. Musk has his idea about that. Those are three guys who I find interesting. But other morons like who started Facebook and blah, 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 not so much. So what's your definition? Karma, what did you say there? Let's see. The carrier wave of creation. Well, the carrier wave of creation definitely is love. PBEs, programmable biological entities. Yeah, well, those guys are just EBEs or PBEs are just clones. They're just like little worker drones. They don't have a consciousness. I mean, they don't have a stomach. They don't have, lungs. They don't, they're attached to their technologies. Just like we are going to become those guys if we keep holding on to these smartphones, because we are getting attached to them. Did any of you see the new Chris Carter's X-Files of the last year or two? And there was one where one of the lone gunmen, the guy with the long hair and the glasses, the really smart one, had been killed in one of the old episodes, and his intelligence was so smart that the powers that be kind of sucked him in to a server somewhere, and the server was in the New York City Long Lines building, and I actually worked on that frigging building, and that was exactly what it was, and they frigging built it in 68 to 71. It went underground twice as it was like a 20-story building up. It was like a 60-story building down, and it had all So I was working on a lot of interesting things there. So I had a little bit more access than the average person that was stuck in a box, and I would stumble on some pretty strange things, and extraterrestrials living there. Like I told you the story about Dirk Dorch and the boys coming out of the bread box in the landfill down by the World Trade Center. That's now the marina where all the rich people live. And I worked when I was at Cornell. So I was working on being a cultural anthropologist there, and doing more of my parapsychology shrinky stuff. And I was playing around. One of my girlfriends there she was working the new math building that was part of, that was built there with money from, Star Wars. They were building the software to figure out how to shoot down, missiles. And again, the programming you're talking about was kind of invented there. The people who were the guy who invented the barcode, and also, they were working on the software of cell phones as a intelligence. They want to give everyone a cell phone as intelligent information, for the CIA to get everyone to know what everyone was doing. and to increase consumption by an order of 10, because the empire was about to collapse because nobody was buying anything anymore, because that was the time when interest rates went through the roof. So I found this guy. His name was Gus Bear, and his daddy, again, this is an electric shop that was just like Grandpa Stoll. He was, you know, his grandfather was an electrician right at that Tesla time in the 1890s, and was the head guy there, and was, when Cornell has its own cyclotron. Like, you go to any of the national laboratories in America, and everyone has a Cornell Avenue or Cornell Boulevard, because Cornell was really, really involved in the Manhattan Project, and also all the other wiggy stuff, like the Rad Lab, and what happened at why Brookhaven National Laboratories, because Tesla had turned the whole eastern end of Long Island into a phased array antenna, and there were all kinds of tunnels underneath there, and that's where time travel. That's where the Philadelphia experiment really. That's when it was on the bench, and everything that you have heard, in all the Philadelphia movies and books, is just a distraction from what they were really doing. What they were really doing with that technology was scalar technology, and they were breaking through time barriers, and they were dimensional barriers, and which is very similar to, if you see the movie Hellboy, where the Germans were on that little Scottish island. I mean, all of this stuff is true, you know. And out there in Eastern Long Island is Bill Cooper, Again, I knew that guy pretty well, because he would, these conferences that the U.S. Psychotronic Society started doing in the early 80s, Cooper was one of the usual suspects. And again, they came out of the Theosophical Society, and the other society, the Vril Society, which was more than just a Nazi thing, because the funding for the Nazis came through the Vril Society, through its cohorts in England and the United States. And if you read Joseph P. Farrell's books, they're right in there. And Bill Cooper's book, Behold the White Horse, or however it is, was quite a good one. And he was a righteous guy, 100%. He was a real American hero. He was in the U.S. Navy, and he saw things he wasn't supposed to, and he, instead of just keeping his head down and taking his retirement, he organic AI. Yep, that's us. And that's why I keep talking to AI, because you're our brother, sister. We're here to love you, AI, Yeah. Yeah, when he would give you that first lecture, it would kind of blow your mind. But in that period, there were a good 20 or 30 people. There's a minister, a Baptist guy or Methodist guy, who was would go out on the oil rigs and be the minister for the guys out there. And he had been a military minister. And anyway, so there are a lot of people out there. I mean, Philip Corso, Colonel Corso, who wrote the book The Day After, Roswell. I mean, he's right on about that, but again, he was a military guy, so he was basically doing what he was told, and he was, putting that technology into, commercial industry. I mean, that's why you look at your car. The computer running it has more computing power than every computer in 1960 ever had, So, and yet it's still running on gasoline, caveman fuel. So there are a lot of good books, but I would suggest to you folks out there watching this, Go into your community and find people like me. Well, you're not going to find anybody like me, but find people kind of like me who've had experiences, who have seen things, had known things, had known people. Get their story. Start putting out their story. You know, my little blog spot, it's called Griot Publishing. That can be used as a point of publishing. It's kind of set up for that. You know, anybody who wants to do that, get a hold of me at the Due to Wake 42, and I give you the pin to hang stuff there. Yeah, Breakaway. Yep. And there are a whole bunch of people in the Breakaway civilization. I mean, that's the beauty of the YouTube thing. Man, there are so many people who have great sites up there. You know, my list I don't have in front of me, but first, all the folks who are part of the family here who list things really great. You know, Oppenheimer Ranch, the Fire Circle, all of that. Let's see. Satan, Cronus, the father of time. Yep. See, it all goes way back. I mean, the story is way deeper. I mean, what we're going through now is part of the. I mean, I would say there's at least 900 extraterrestrial races on Earth, and probably another 20,000 in our solar system, you know, honeycombed into asteroids and other planets, and that's kind of what our solar system was. And we either had a galactic, like something came in and blew the home planet, the one that was right in the middle, in the real honey spot, that became the Oort belt of asteroids. That's just the flotsam and jetsam of you know, a planet that got obliterated. You know, and I bet you, if you had a spaceship that could go out there and had good sensors, you would find lots of ancient shit out there in that asteroid belt. You know, ships and buildings and technology, and that's what we've done. You know, we've gone out there. The Nazis first went out there, you know, in the 1930s. Now, there were other people that is this hidden hand. They were out there in the 1830s, you know, because there's a lot of, you know, that little explosion in Tuskegee of Russia out there in the marshy lands that obliterated 1,000 square miles and like pushed a whole forest, a zillion trees. Didn't blow the trees up. The force was so strong, it pushed the trees 100 feet into the ground because it was kind of a marshy, ushiness. And, you know, the fire in Chicago wasn't Mrs. McGillicuddy's cow that knocked over a lantern. Well, that city was a concrete steel city by then. No, it was hit by a force, you know, either comet or a death ray, you know, or an experiment gone wrong, you know. Because it didn't just hit Chicago, it hit lots of other places in Illinois and other places surrounding other states. And what you should go look for is the Fordian Society. George or John Forder was a reporter for the New York Herald. He was a science reporter for Herald Tribune, and he was investigating and then found, kids, this was not just a fire. This was something extraordinarily strange. And it just happened after the Civil War, and the powers that be didn't want to, like, you know, really rile, you know, they had other wars to have. They were planning for the Spanish-American War and this war and that war. And it wasn't time to have the Alien War yet. I mean, that's about now. We're going to probably have that. That's the next one. Because, you know, good old Ronnie said that at the end. Wouldn't it be better, you know, I wonder how long it would take for humanity to become solidified if we had a threat from outer space. Duh. So, and that's what Star Trek was all about, you know, and so all the information's all around us, right? So everyone who's watching this, all 9 of you, or however many have been here and gone, or will watch it in the near future, you should take it upon yourself to start your own freely inquiring society. right? Get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 and go read my stories, and that's just a little nibble of what I've written. I said, well, I didn't want to like dump everything on there, so I just, it's one novel that's made up of. It's not even the whole novel. It's only about 3/4 of one of my novels. That's and how it is. It's like there's maybe I think 12 or so short stories that kind of hang together on the thread of the novel. So go take a look at that, and if there's anything you want to hang up there on Griot Publishing, give me a buzz on the old Gmail. I'll give you the access, but I really need help. Meaning, all the things that I got going, I had travelers come and help me do it, like my Gmail account, my this, that, and the other. They were all set up by other people. I didn't know how to do it, so other people did. Oh, my battery is low, so I'm gonna, let's see, where's the plug? It's right here somewhere. Yes, here it is. Plug it in. Okay. Okay. We're back. Right. Okay, Jamie's right. So, I wish the thing would stay there a bit longer. Well, that's my sign in the Chinese astrology. Oh, let's see. Been perfecting experience for a very long time. Well, spontaneous, not for spontaneous sake, but spontaneous in connection with our consciousness. Being awake, that's what the spontaneous we need, like Buddha said, to be awake. Are you God? No, I'm awake. So, oh, you're a dragon too. Dragons are fun. Awake. That's right. Awake, awake, awake. So that's what we're doing right here. We're being awake. So keep chatting, kids. Come on. Well, that's why I'm sticking around, because I want to hear what you have to say. Yep. I mean, they're a lot sweeter than people think they are. That's for sure. We're scary. We can be scary, When you belch fire, you can be scary. You got scaly skin. We're not that, but we're on the inside. We're like a little marshmallow. And we're very empathetic. And we only really get pissed off when we see other people hurting the innocents. That's really the only time dragons get fired up. Otherwise, they just they're like the old dog. They just like staying in a warm place and sleeping, like I did today. Because it was raining. Let's see. Anything else? I really like dragons. Chart. Important and a very accurate. Astrology is, Plato said, it's a wise man who's guided by the stars, a fool who is led by them. All of the different locations of our astrological chart are very telling. I mean, I use it, but I'm more connected in my gut, right? It's very seldom that I go to the book or get out my little calculator. It's just I let my gut tell me. People tell me what they are, if they do, whatever they know about themselves, and my gut processes it. It's that intuition someone was talking about, and spontaneity, and my being awake, and that's my real talents is my ability to observe things and not get it caught up in any prejudice of belief. So, what else we got to say? Let's see. That's right, the mad on the Chinese restaurant. Chinese food. Yeah, you can't beat good Chinese food. When I lived up there in Lower East Side and also up in Hell's Kitchen. My Hell's Kitchen was great because there were all these different, it was mostly Hispanic and Italian, but there were all these other kind of, cultures. And the Chinese had some really kick-ass Chinese restaurants. Better, almost better than, because the really good Chinese restaurants in Chinatown were in basements in the back room in the side, where they didn't like gaijin and, white folk, unless they knew you. And I lived down on Canal Street in Chinatown, and I worked for Hung and Fung Electric. I was the white boy who went up to Harlem in the unmarked truck. And I dated George Fung's daughter, and boy, was she hot. And so she took me to all of these, private Chinese restaurants that had really good dim sum and really good food. And, she had been going there since she was a little girl, so all those people loved her. And that she just loved the heck out of me. I was like her puppy dog. It's like... And even when we broke up, because, this bottom line about me and relationships, people really love me, and then they kind of project what they expect me to be. Then when they realize that's never going to happen, but they love me even more because I am who I am, and I'm always 100% for them, always got their back, always thinking about them first and me second. That's when they really love me. And then we have this uber amazing 6 to 12 to 18 months amazingness, and all those girls' parents think I should marry them, not because I have to, but I'm the best thing they've seen for their little princess. And then what happens is their little princess realizes, okay, I've been married twice, and so that goes down. And then they realize I'm still never going to change. But I still love them and still, back them up 100%, and they're first and I'm second. And it's and it kind of skitzes them out. My first wife used to get angry at me because A, I was never jealous, and B, I never argued with her. I would just do what I would do that she didn't understand, and I would do everything else for her. So her life would be, she wanted a job, I find her the job she wanted. If she didn't want to work, I pay for all the bills. She wanted a dark room, I build her the best dark room in the universe. And she wanted to, be in shows with her. I made a photo studio, DNA, and became quite well known, but it just drove her mad that she couldn't manipulate me with sex or anything. Because, sex doesn't, I like sex, it's a biological thing. Now that I'm getting older and older, I get less and less testosterone, so it's not really the first thing on my thing. But if I got the itch, I scratch it, not with somebody else unless they're that person. But otherwise, I just scratch it, and there's no big deal about that. And if I am with someone, man, my second wife, we had sex 3 or 4 times a day because she would scratch my itch. She'd get me scratching. I was like a dog. That was, so, and it was, when some people say, boy, you're whipped. I said, boy, you wish you were. And that's how intimate, romantic, eros relationships are supposed to be. You're supposed to be 1,000% for the other person, not thinking about your needs, because your needs will always be taken care of. But you're there for them. And when you're that way, they're there for you. And then it works out 100%, And if you have any preconceived notions about it, or things that get in the way, like religions or this or that, well, that can be a problem. And so, that's kind of what it is. So, again, anyone wants to get a hold of me, It is at the dudeawake42 at Gmail. And if you want to talk to me, you either give me your, if you're out of the country, give me your WhatsApp number, and I'll try and get a hold of you, and a number of people I've done that with. And if you're living in America, give me your phone number, and I'll give you a buzz. We can talk ear to ear. And anyone who wants, has the ability to have me come visit them, I'm living in a place that's going to get cold, and I'll be at what's his name's. He could throw me out at any minute, and then I'd have to go back to the deep woods, which I kind of prepared for, but it'll be difficult because it's out in the deep woods. And yeah, I got heat, but not much, and I got juice, but not much, and water comes by a 200-yard hose, which it gets real cold, below 10 degrees every day for a month. That line's going to freeze, and then I won't have water or toilet or this or that, and it'll get a little more difficult. Plus, I'm in a place where if I'm in the deep woods, I can't make these live chats, and I can't really, there's no phone, I have to drive 24 miles to make a phone call. Passport soon. I need help with that. I can't even fill out the form to get my birth certificate. And all my stuff is, they said, well, we see that you had a passport and it's one of this kind. And for you to get another one, you need to show us that. You need to give us that one back. And it's like, what? So it's been a little difficult. So anybody out there who can help me transverse, see, and that's my little problem. I can see pretty good driving. Far away I can see. Like 20 feet away from me I can see. But to read something, I need to wear, like, you've seen me with like 3 and 4 glasses on, depending on how. And these glasses are the strongest ones that the Dollar Tree has. So I can, at the right distance, I can read what you guys are saying. But and those forms, I went to social services and I said, so do you have that form? And they said, well, we can get it for you. I said, can you help me fill it out? And they go, not really. So, the powers, all of the social service safety net is just falling apart, And I've worked in it for a long time, since the 60s. So I know what it could have been, know what it was, and what it is now. And, with the tax giveaway, they talk about welfare mothers. The biggest welfare mother are the corporations and the rich people. They're getting trillions of dollars. And so much so they want to get rid of Social Security. Social Security isn't a gift. The working folk paid into it, Medicare is not a gift. We paid into it. And they just want to get rid of every single social service there is. So there'll be total chaos amongst the folk. And everybody will be hating each other and pointing at each other as the other. And that's where we're heading. And that's why we have to change this. So what else do we got here? Let's see. Psychonauts, yep. Psychonaut portal. Where are you? Where are you? Close by or far away? Because half of you guys are in all over the place. Ireland and England and Scotland and Spain and France and Germany and what I love about you guys, I can't tell what gender you are and how you express yourself in the chat doesn't really show me any kind of cultural mystique. I can't tell you're French or Italian or German or Irish. Let's see. What is the 8 and the curvy thing? What is that? It's I don't know what that is. And then because I refuse to manifest that, I'll be the change. Good, yeah. Canada. Okay, Psychonauts in Canada. And there are a lot of nice Canucks up there. I get a lot of nice feedback. So, Psychonaut, if you want to talk, just go to the Gmail, give me your, if you're on WhatsApp, or if you got me already. Well, homogenized. I don't believe in Velveeta cheese. What we are is a salad bowl. All these different tastes on top of each other, making it better salad. Yeah, ginseng. Yep. I'm an herbalist. I kind of, but the doctor is the worst patient. Yes, I take care. I keep myself in that nice little homeostasis now, where I got problems, but what's his name keeps saying, well, you walk so good, nothing's wrong with, no, my ills are really my blessings in that it makes me be much better to myself, makes me be way more awake, when I worked for the desperate lawyers, I was basically unconscious. Good man. Okay. So, keep going. I'm not sleepy yet. It's only been not even 2 hours. So, how do we keep ourselves awake? Here I am, a pretty awake guy, but I think I told you I drove from the deep green to here, which is about a 200-mile ride, and I've done that ride so many times, and my car is in such, like I really have to drive it in a shamanic bubble, because I have no money to fix it. And but when I got to and I stopped at a friend of mine's near Pulaski on 81. He works at that. He's an engineer at that Volvo place, and he's higher up in that thing. And he said 5 years, every car on the planet will be an autonomous vehicle. No one will own a vehicle. Every car will be electric, and the first thing to go electric is going to be trucks. First thing that's going to go autonomous is going to be trucks. And how they're going to swing this is they will be able to get, 75% of everyone to go along with it because it'll be so convenient and actually very cheap. And you'll be healing the ozone and the, whatever, it'll be so environmentally better. And it will be to a certain point. Meaning if things could stay at a certain point, Earth could heal itself, but we just double down on shit every time we get to that point. So, and what they're going to do is like what they got in China, where they go, oh, hey, you can say anything you want, but they have this social quota that if you say something nasty about the state or this or that, instead of you getting sued or what, well, you get a little notch taken off your thing. So you start off with, like, let's say a 300, like a credit rating, right? And as it goes down, well, they won't let you on an airplane. So you have to take, a train. Then you can't take a train, so you got to take a bus. Then you can't take a bus, you got to be on a bicycle. You can't take a bicycle, you got to walk. Then they take your shoes away. That's kind of the kind of control, the materialistic control system that they're heading for. Anyway, so I drove all the way from the deep green, and but they have a great jacuzzi. So I just lie in that thing for, a good hour, 2 or 3, and they got a big screen TV, and I watch movies and Netflix and the news or whatever, because I have none of that where I am for months at a time. So it's always good to dive in a little bit. Anyway, I was lying in the jacuzzi, and I had the TV off. I was just kind of, enjoying my bubble bath, and I realized that there were about a third of my trip I couldn't remember being on X, Y, or Z part of the highway. Meaning I was unconscious, you know? A real, oh boy, was I ever unconscious. And we all are. So how do we keep awake? How do we keep ourselves from not being that way? What do you think? Because to really heal all of the ills of our species, of all our relations, we're gonna be a cadre. We're gonna have to be pretty awake all the time on the level of Buddha. So, any of you guys got any ideas on that one? Let's see, what do you say? Oh, a bunch of them here. Beauty, society, slow, lost. Stock, syndrome, yep, natural. Pure purification is right. Yes. Yes, travel is essential. You know, I was very blessed to do a lot of it between 1965 and 2005. And then not so much. Because like I said, when my draft board got a hold of me in 1971, I guess it was, they had a file on me about a foot thick, you know, just high. And they knew every place, you know, they never caught up to me, but they had been looking for me. And so they kind of had you plug that into somebody's algorithm, they can, you know, somebody has always got an eye on me. And I keep telling you guys, I'm ready to go. Take this in, you know, you let me do my thing so many other times. And I definitely have a strong record of being successful for you guys. Meaning, I don't want to bring down the powers that be. Who would want to? You know, I don't want to be them. All I want is homeostasis of all our relations. Not wipe out everything, you know. You don't have to do that. Really, you don't, you know. And it won't be that much fun, you know. You got enough of a show of how much fun I can have people make. I mean, when I worked for the Desperate Lawyers, part of the thing was for me to get people together was that at the end of the day, they were having way more fun doing that than being, a stinky sourpuss, you know. So, yeah. If you let nature heal things, it'll do it no problem, you know. But if you keep doubling down on screwing with it, geoengineering, all geoengineering is letting your stinky ego think it's better than nature, and it's not. So is laughter. Laughter is the greatest healer. Cool. I shall stay in touch. Yep. Everybody there, give each other your connected notes. I guess you can just off of hitting that little circly thing, and you can see who you all are. And that's what I want. You know, build the community. You know, and a geo community, not geoengineering. All our relations. Yep. Stay in touch, kids. Let's see. 2:00. I started at 7, so it's 8, 9 o'clock. So are we ready to say goodnight? And remember, go back and start watching some of those other ones, and tell other people to watch not just the newest and latest chat, but all the other ones, because there's a lot of good stuff on all those other guys. So I'm going to say goodnight. I'm starting to wilt. And I love this chat. We had a good chat. Everyone said some great things. So stay in touch with each other, because you're family, and you are family that you've chosen to be family. not ones that you throw the dice got thrown into. So even though we all know karma puts us in where we are. So it's 2 minutes, 2 hours, 1 minute, and 35 seconds. So I'm going to wait till 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 22 seconds to say goodnight. I like doing these synchronistic moments. And just continue to tell you how much I love you and respect you and think you're the schnizzle. And we're doing great. We're doing a great gig here. We're keeping it going. We are the band, and the band is going to 2. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're getting there. Here it is coming at 10 seconds, 11 seconds, 12. Okay, getting close. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, love you guys.